The name Cleopatra is familiar to everyone. She is the last queen of Egypt and one of the most mysterious women in history. The men were ready to die for her. And the leaders were able to fight wars to please them. It didn't mind anyone testing her food before she ate it. But there is a question many historians are asking today. And they try to answer it. Was Cleopatra that super beautiful and tender-hearted queen? Or was she an ugly and cruel woman? Men deceived their relatives to rule with an iron fist. That is what we will try to discover in this episode. So follow the video to the end, as usual, and before we start, scroll down and press the like button. Enlarge the screen and let's go together, said the Roman archaeologist Aurelius Victor in the 4th century. Because the beauty of Cleopatra drove men crazy. The Greek historian Plutarch confirmed the exact opposite. It was without that Cleopatra did not have any beautiful features. The latter also confirmed that she was a very ordinary queen. This was also confirmed by the historian Josephus Flavius and other historians. But the common denominator among those historians is that they all lived after the death of Cleopatra. And therefore they could not see it. The difficulty of verifying the validity of their accounts is that all the statues of Cleopatra are copied from the statue of the goddess Isis, which the queen loved. In general, it can be said that girls did not start using cosmetics and filters in modern times only, but Cleopatra did so several centuries ago. There are many 3D models being built today, based on DNA data. But those models are not of high quality. Even the color of Cleopatra's skin is not certain, as it may have been white or perhaps it was brown. But what the researchers confirm is that the shape of Cleopatra's nose confirms that the queen is Greek, not pharaonic. Even the details of her face engraved on some ancient coins confirm this. Also, the king's name is a Greek name. The strangest thing that the inscriptions and historical documents mention about Cleopatra is her marriage to her 2 brothers and her betrayal of them as well. Marrying brothers was permissible in the ruling family. Many historical sources indicate that Cleopatra was able to speak 5 different languages. They are languages that the rest of the pharaohs did not know. Despite the lack of sources that make us know a lot of information about the daily life of this queen. However, some sources narrate the most important days of Queen Cleopatra. The first day is the 15th of January in the year 47 BC. When the queen was afflicted with great grief after the death of her husband and brother, Ptolemy XIII, who shared her rule. From the moment they come to power jointly. 51 years BC. Disagreements began between the spouses. But the husband made a huge mistake. He killed a senator belonging to Julius Caesar, king of Rome. Julius Caesar did not like what was issued by Ptolemy XIII and decided to take revenge. At that time, Ptolemy XIII tried to expel Cleopatra from Alexandria. But that coincided with the arrival of Julius Caesar to Alexandria, which was under the tutelage of the Romans. Caesar decided to fix the situation and return Cleopatra to her in a secret manner. Cleopatra fell in love with Caesar, but Caesar refused to leave Alexandria. Because he saw it as the best to rule Egypt. Ptolemy XIII tried to defend the throne, which led to a small war during which the Egyptians were helpless in front of the Romans. Ptolemy XIII died at the age of 22 years. A few months later, Cleopatra gave birth to a child from Julius Caesar, who was then 52 years old. After having a child, Cleopatra married her other brother. After having a child, Cleopatra married her other brother, Ptolemy XIV. He was then 12 years old. And through all these events, we realize that Cleopatra did not mind that her relatives died in order to preserve her throne on the 15th of March of the year 44 BC. Another important day in Cleopatra's life. At that time, Cleopatra had lived for about 2 years in Julius Caesar's palace. She controlled Egypt from a distance under the Treaty of the Alliance of Egypt and Rome. Meanwhile, some rumors spread that Caesar wanted to move the capital to Alexandria to marry Cleopatra. Other rumors also circulated indicating that the assassination attempts on the Tsar at the time were organized by those angry at his manipulation of their queen. And after the killing of Caesar on the 15th of March of the year 44 BC, many divisions occurred in his kingdom, which prompted Cleopatra to return to her kingdom. To find the situation there much worse, famine prevailed in the country due to the low water level in the Nile River. The soldiers were ruling the country by force to prevent a civil war. After that, many disputes arose between Cleopatra and her husband, Ptolemy XIV. What made the situation worse was the death of a relative of Ptolemy shortly thereafter, which made him point the finger at Cleopatra directly. What followed was the involvement of Ptolemy XV, whom Cleopatra gave birth to from Julius Caesar, in power, and Cleopatra's throne. There is another historic day in the year 41 BC. But the exact date is not known. After the death of Caesar, the 40-year-old Roman general Mark Antony took possession of it, on the eastern part of Rome. He was considered the direct successor to Julius Caesar. Although there are no sources confirming Cleopatra's relationship with what happened at the time, historians believe that the war against the Parthians made Mark Antony approach Cleopatra in the hope of obtaining its money, which would benefit the Romans a lot during the war. Cleopatra was not aware of Antony's intentions at first. But before a meeting was held between the two parties, Cleopatra learned of his intentions from one of the officers close to her. Cleopatra sailed towards Rome in a luxury boat raised with gold. The queen offered a lot of money, but that was not all. She even requested that Antony plan the assassination of her sister in return for obtaining the necessary assistance in his war against the Parthians. Cleopatra wanted to take advantage of the situation to get rid of her last potential competitor to the Egyptian throne. What followed this agreement was an affair between Cleopatra and Mark Antony. It lasted for 10 years. Historians and writers have added many unnecessary additions to this story while writing it down. Getting to the truth is very difficult. But what is certain is that the interests between the Romans and the Egyptians were mutual in this period of Cleopatra's life. Cleopatra ruled Egypt with a fist from so-and-so to eliminate any internal conflicts. Her relationship with Antony was very impressive. Although both sides committed many minor mistakes, Cleopatra loved to enjoy her time with Antony in the streets of the city. The two got to know each other well. But by the first day of August of 30 BC, all scales have tipped. At that time, Antony married Octavian, sister of Caesar Augustus. He betrayed her with Cleopatra and held a celebration on the occasion of the victory over the Parthians in Alexandria. At that time, all the lands colonized by the Romans were distributed to his children, in addition to Cleopatra and those close to her. And we must not forget that Egypt in that period was no longer part of the Roman Empire. On paper they were completely separate. But Tsar Augustus was not satisfied.